It's a beautiful autumn day here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot lined up for you today, so let's first get started with a look at the day's highlights. Firms in emerging markets might be in trouble as they struggle with a massive amount of debt due to overborrowing. As two world powers, the U.S. and China compete for trade dominance in the Asia-Pacific region with their mega trade deals, Korea weighs its options. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. But first, Volkswagen Korea has issued an apology to local customers affected by the emissions rigging scandal that erupted in the U.S. 3 weeks ago. The apology was issued Thursday via ads in major Korean dailies, with Volkswagen Korea CEO Thomas Kuhl expressing regret for the company's breach of trust with customers and the public. The statement also said the company will take all possible measures, including a recall, and working closely with the Korean government to resolve the problem. The statement did not, however, outline how the company would process a recall or what requirements would be there for one to receive compensation. And now that member nations this week have signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the world's biggest trade pact, the big question now is if and when Korea will sign up to join. In an attempt to get closer to answering those questions, Seoul's Trade Ministry hosted a TPP strategic forum on Thursday with ministry officials, economic institutions, and experts to discuss Korea's next move. The ministry says in the mid to long term, the TPP will have a significant impact on the Korean economy, but the short-term risks are limited. While agreeing to that, participating experts also argued that Korea will have a 1 or 2 year window to decide whether it wants to join and make the necessary preparations. And moving on to fiscal soundness, the IMF forecasts that Korea will see an end to its consolidated budget surplus streak it has posted since 2009. According to the IMF's Fiscal Monitor report published Thursday, Korea's consolidated budget balance to GDP is estimated to record negative 0.5% this year. Between 2006 and 2014, the government maintained a balance of 0.6% to 2.2% of GDP, except in 2009, when it posted 0% amid the global financial crisis. The IMF forecasts the balance will return to positive territory with 0.3% next year and continue to expand to 1.4% by 2020. The consolidated balance is produced by deducting total expenditure from total revenue. Now, Seoul says the IMF report appears to have reflected Korea's $10 billion supplementary budget adopted in August. The IMF points out that some of the biggest risks to the global economy are now in emerging markets. Why? Because firms there have accumulated a massive amount of debt, despite a slow growth trend over the past 5 years. Our Shin Se-min has more.
The International Monetary Fund says private companies in emerging markets have raked up an estimated $3 trillion of debt due to overborrowing, raising concerns about a possible credit decline and capital outflows. At the fund's annual meeting in Peru on Wednesday, top bank official Jose Viñals said the unprecedented lending spree has come to an end with the sharp decline in prices for oil and commodities, largely attributed to China's economic slowdown.
Higher leverage in the private sector have left many firms in emerging markets more susceptible to economic downturns and emerging economies more exposed to capital outflows and to deteriorating asset quality.
He said the risk is that shocks from bankruptcies in the developing economies' private sector, particularly Latin American economies, which are heavily reliant on commodities, could be amplified in global financial markets. The worst-case scenario, he said, would be a vicious cycle of fire sales and volatility. He added that overborrowing in rising economies is estimated to add up to some 15% of their gross domestic product and nearly 25% of China's GDP. Viñals also said the IMF doesn't think it is time for the U.S. Federal Reserve to boost its key rate, saying that wage and price inflation have yet to gain the strength needed for a rate hike at this stage. Once the Fed does begin to raise rates, emerging markets are widely expected to see further capital flights and further currency devaluations against the U.S. dollar. 신세민, Business Daily.
Back here at home, the economy is showing steady signs of improvement as consumption pulls itself back up to levels seen before the MERS impact in the second quarter. In its so-called Green Book, Korea's finance ministry said both private spending and industrial output advanced in September. Indicators in consumption in particular recorded two-digit growth. On-year, department store sales rose 14%. Credit card transactions hiked 14.8%, and domestic sales of Korean car brands logged a 15.5% gain. The finance ministry said preemptive measures like the government's supplementary budget and nationwide sales events helped revitalize spending, but still warned of lingering external pressures. Financial fraud here in Korea incurred nearly $130 million in damages in the first half of this year. And zoning in on voice phishing, a new delayed transfer feature is being prepped to roll out this month that will require a 3-hour wait time between transfer and withdrawal. Our Eunice Kim has details.
7 out of 10 voice phishing calls claim to be from the Supreme Prosecutor's Office. And often they direct the victim to a website.
우선 그럼 저희 사이트 바로 들어올 수 있게끔 제가 부여를 해드릴 텐데 spokh.com이고요.
It looks like the website of the Supreme Prosecutor's Office. Here, the call recipient is instructed to enter his or her bank account information and password.
그 입출금 800만 원 있으신 그 계좌 있으시죠? 네네. 예, 여기를 먼저 등록을 시켜주시겠어요? 그 보안카드를 본인께서 일련 번호만 적어주시면 됩니다.
Once the victim realizes he or she's been scammed, it may be too late. That's why the Financial Supervisory Service wants to extend the time required to pass before the scam artist can pull out cash from the ATM.
This will apply to all electronic transfers, whether originating on a website or by phone, and will help prevent financial fraud in the future.
The withdrawal delay option will extend the waiting period to 3 hours, giving the individual 2.5 hours to reconsider the transfer, should something feel fishy about it. In fact, in June, that wait period between transfer and withdrawal was raised from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, a move that Korea's financial watchdog said Monday has already proven effective, with 55% of the otherwise lost money stopped and returned in the third quarter. The 3-hour delay service will be offered starting on the 16th next Friday and can be requested via internet banking or with a bank teller. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
After 5 years of negotiations, member countries concluded the U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal this week. And now another world power, China, is expected to counter it with a different trade pact it has drawn up. Let's take a closer look.
Could this be round two between two major world powers? Back in June, China officially launched the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, challenging the dominance of U.S.-led financial institutions worldwide. And this week, the U.S.-led TPP deal was concluded, leading many to believe Beijing may be feeling the need to counterbalance the mega trade deal with a pact just as massive.
Is that if we don't write the rules, China will write the rules out in that region. We will be shut out. American businesses, American agriculture, that will mean a loss of U.S. jobs.
Experts say that China, too, is not a big fan of the American-led free trade club that would make its neighbors subject to U.S. influence and threaten its trade dominance in the region. But if there's the TPP for the U.S., then there's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, trade pact for China. RCEP involves all 10 ASEAN member states, as well as Australia, China, India, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand. Negotiations officially kicked off in 2012, but now with the TPP in place, China may be looking to get the ball rolling on RCEP talks sooner than later.
And to tell us more about this, we're now joined by Professor Kim Se-wan of Ewha Women's University. So good to have you join us today.
Good afternoon.
All right, so when it comes to the TPP deal, is it fair for us to say that the U.S. led this deal in order to counter China and China's RCEP deal?
That's true. The two countries of U.S. and China are competing seriously to grab the initiatives of building up free trading zones over Asia-Pacific region. This is very important for both of the countries because it is about the designing the economic future of the two countries. And President Barack Obama made it clear by saying that we can't let countries like China to write the rules of the global economy. I think that reveals the real intention of the U.S. governments on TPP.
All right, then what was China's reaction when it heard that the trade pact was agreed on?
Well, as far as I know, Chinese official response to the agreement is pretty diplomatic and polite, I think. They even say they welcome the agreement of the TPP. But Chinese media is saying something different. They are arguing that TPP shouldn't be successful without participation of the China. I think that also reveals the Chinese feeling about the TPP.
All right. Well, the RCEP negotiations, China-led RCEP negotiations, are still ongoing. In fact, they're actually the next round is taking place here in Korea, in the southern port city of Busan. How far have we gone? How far are these negotiations, these RCEP negotiations?
Well, they do not tell us about the details of the progress of the negotiations in RCEP, but it is pretty well known that Korea is playing a major role as a coordinator of the conflicts of interest between member countries. It is very important role of in the middle of the progress of the RCEP. And they had a meeting August of this year. And as you said, this month we will have another meeting. And the TPP's agreement will accelerate, I think, the progress of the RCEP.
All right, so probably they're going to agree on this negotiation sooner than later.
I hope so, yeah.
All right, well, Korea already has FTAs in place with 50 countries, including some member countries involved in the TPP and RCEP. Would the effects be much different if Korea joined these deals instead of having FTAs with all these member countries?
Yes, actually, I might say the RCEP kind of agreements, which is multilateral agreement, is more influential than individual bilateral FTAs, because more countries are participating in multilateral agreements. But in the case of the FTA with many other countries, we have FTA with all member countries of the RCEP and TPP, except Japan. But that was not so effective so far to promote or to increase our trade with partner countries, particularly for the case of the India and ASEAN member countries. And that is caused mostly by some restrictions from Indian and ASEAN member countries. So RCEP is a great opportunity to get rid of these kind of restrictions from these countries.
All right, but then Korea also wanted to join the TPP as well. So now at this point, we want to know, what are some major key differences between the two trade deals?
Well, as far as I know, the cost and benefit analysis of the TPP is not completed yet. For example, if we join the TPP, there will be winners and losers between Korean industries, like we have automobile industry, pharmaceutical industry, and agricultural industry. Therefore, I think that's the reason why South Korean government has been pretty cautious in joining
the TPP.
However, we have to maintain our international competitiveness, particularly against the big beneficiaries of the TPP, like Japanese auto industry. So joining TPP is something required, and also at the same time, RCEP is another chance to get rid of obstacles of the international trade from FTA.
Okay, well, but then you mentioned a little bit what it's going to be like for Korea, but what are some other losses and gains that Korea would get if it joined the two deals?
Well, Well, the largest benefit should be expanded free trade zones. For example, TPP covers 40% of global GDP. And on the other side, RCEP covers almost 30% of the global GDP. So when we have more trade with these countries, our GDP, our income increases, which is very important. And we have to, by the way, remember that the TPP comes with more regulations, particularly on public companies and environmental issues and intellectual properties.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye for now.